So, welcome to our webinar today. Today we're going to be taking a look at Retail Pro versions 8 and 9 and doing accounts receivable, and also how that can sync up with QuickBooks accounting. So, does anybody have any questions? No? All right. So, we're going to take a look at the AR charge system. We'll take a look at how to set up system preferences for using AR. We'll take a look at setting up charge tender. We'll take a look at having a payment on account, or a POA, that we can use to pay those customer charges with. In Account Link, we'll look at syncing over to Account Link. We'll look at taking a look at setting up Account Link, what's involved in linking customers from Retail Pro into the accounting software. We'll take a look at how to read a receipt batch, how to post a batch, and then importing that batch into QuickBooks accounting. We'll also look at how to apply payments to our invoices that we've created from our vendors. All right, so we'll start out by taking a look at Retail Pro. In Retail Pro, if I want to set up some preferences, I need to go to Options. I need to go to System Preferences. In System Preferences, we're going to start out in Point of Sale. We'll take a look at Tender Requirements. For Charge Tender, I am set up to use and require a customer's last name as well as a customer's phone number so that I can get a hold of that customer should I need to. Next, under Receipts and Tender Types, I want to make sure that Charge is selected as a valid tender type. Under Customers, I want to make sure that down here in the bottom area that I have limit charge tenders to AR customers only. So therefore, if a customer is not set up as an accounts receivable customer, they will not be able to do a charge. I also have allow charges against charge limit of 0. That is totally up to you whether you want to set up a charge limit in your QuickBooks Point of Sale, that if the customer reaches or exceeds that, they won't be able to do an AR charge. However, also be aware that Account Link does not send customer balances back to Retail Pro, and Retail Pro does not keep track of the customer balances in a customer balance, so it requires that you manually adjust the customer balance in your Retail Pro in order for that charge limit to make a difference. And so that's why I always set allow charges against a charge limit of 0. All right. Next thing we want to do is I'm going to take a look at, I'll save those changes. That is all in Retail Pro version 8. In Retail Pro version 9, we have similar options to set up. Under System Preferences, under Local Preferences, under Point of Sale, and under General Options, we have Limit Charge to AR customers only, so that again, you can only charge something to a customer who is an AR charge customer. All right. Also, under Tenders, Under requirements, again, we will make sure that AR charge is set up to be a valid tender. And under AR charge, what do we want to require as part of that? I have last name, first name, and phone number. So with that set up, I will update my system preferences. When you're using accounts receivable and when you're making charges and making payments, it doesn't really matter whether we're looking at version 9 or version 8 because the actual operation is the same no matter which one we are looking at. And I apologize there. I see that my screen was not being displayed. So I will look at that again real quick. Here under Options in System Preferences and under Local Preferences, under Customers in General, we have our customer set up. Under Point of Sale, under General and Options, this is where we set up that we limit our charges to AR customers. Next, we want to take a look at the tenders and requirements, and that's where we set up that we are going to have AR charge available, and that when we're doing AR charge, we have our customer's first name, last name, and phone number as requirements. Right. And we update that to save that change.
Yeah, it was very random.
Next,
Maybe it was on the floor and she just picked it up.
And back to Retail Pro 8 for a moment. Under Options and System Preferences and Point of Sale, under Tender Requirements, we have our charge. And when we select charge, we've got customer's last name and phone number selected as being required. We have under customers that we limited charges to AR customers and that we allowed a charge limit of 0 because charge balances do not feed back from QuickBooks to Retail Pro, and they don't automatically increment and decrement in Retail Pro when you create a charge or make a payment. So to track those balances in Retail Pro, you would have to manually enter those customer balances and update them on a regular basis after each customer transaction. All right. And we would save those updates. So I'm going to go back into Retail Pro version 9. And we want to take a look at creating an AR charge. To create an AR charge, I'll go to Receipts. I will create a new receipt. Under my receipts, I am going to add a customer. So I am going to select my customer. I'm going to select David. I can see that he is set up to be an AR charge customer. And now I want to sell something. So I'm going to click down here. I'm going to enter an item number. That is going to add an item to my sales receipt. Now that I have an item in my sales receipt, I want to charge this item. So I'm going to go to Tender, I will go over and I will select charge. I have my default terms set up for this customer. I'm not given a discount. I'm not given any discount dates. I have my total, and I say, okay. I've now got the charge limit set up for this customer. I can print and update it, or I can just update it. Because you won't see it if I print it anyway, I'll just update it. So we've now created that charge for that customer. Also, if I am making a payment for a customer, I'm going to go to sales receipts, just like I would if I was selling something. And I will choose my customer lookup. I'll choose what customer I'm making a payment for. I'm going to make a payment for John here. And John, whoop, I didn't want to edit John.
September, October, November every year.
I said, John, where did you go, John? And I'm going to, John wants to make a payment. John wants to make a payment of $173. So I'm going to go down here to the fee name. I'm going to put $173. When I press enter, it asks me what fee am I using. I'm using a POA. An important thing, if you're making a payment, do not put any items on the receipt. Because if you put items on the receipt, it thinks you are trying to charge those, and you cannot make a charge and a payment on the same receipt. So if you want to put items on the receipt and make a payment, be sure you use two different receipts for those two transactions. So we've got our $173 payment. We're going to tender that. We're going to tender that using a check. It is check number 2564. We're going to say OK. We've got our payment. Everything is cool. And I am going to update that only. So now I can go back here and look at my list of receipts. And I can see I've made a charge and I have made a payment. Bringing those over to QuickBooks requires using Account Link. Account Link is an add-in module that you can get for either version 8 or version 9. With Account Link, you can do three things. You can bring over receipts, vouchers, slips, and I already lied to you, and memos. You can do four things. So, receipts, vouchers, slips, and memos. When you're setting it up, under Options and Preferences, you choose what accounting software you're using. Account Link is capable of doing integrations with QuickBooks, with Sage, and with BusinessWorks. You set up what you're using for the General Journal, what you're using for accounts receivable, and what you're using for accounts payable. Under GL Options, you make sure that you have charge selected as a valid option. Under AR Options, you need to select charge as your AR tender and the fee of POA for your AR payments. You also set up down here how the customer is going to come over and how they're going to show up. It's going to be last name, first name. You've got the Retail Pro address. You have address 1, address 2, and address 3, which is the city state. And those are the basic setups for the accounts receivable portion. We click OK, and we have that added to our system. You'll notice over here we have an initialize customers. What that does, when you first set up your account link, you initialize customers and you initialize vendors. Initializing customers brings over any customers that you have in your Retail Pro that are marked as yes or export, and we'll post those into your accounting software. The cool thing about QuickBooks accounting and the accounts receivable setup is that it will automatically bring over any customers and any changes you make to a customer if you mark that customer in Retail Pro as export. It will send over those changes automatically into your QuickBooks accounting, so you don't have to initialize your customers or check your customers. In batches, when we choose receipts, you have update customers. And like I said, with QuickBooks, you don't need to do that 99% of the time, because you're going to mark the customer as export anytime you make a change to them, or if they're a new accounts receivable customer, and that's going to automatically send them over to your QuickBooks. You don't have to do anything extra. So to read a batch, and this is a previous batch I have read, you can see this one also had some accounts receivable on it, and it had an accounts receivable payment. We're going to go up here, we're going to read a batch. When you read a batch, you can read it in one of two ways. You can read it as marked, or you can read it as preview. If it is preview, all you can do is look at it and throw it away. So 99% of the time, you're going to read it as marked. There are 3 dates here in the read a batch. You've got the batch description. That is the name of the batch that is going to come over. That's the name of the Iif file that Account Link is going to create. You have the start date and the end date. You'll notice the end date defaults to today. We have to change the start date, so it is the correct date we want to start at. And 99% of the time, you're going to want all 3 dates to be the same date. You can also separate your batches into a separate batch for each store if you have more than one store. And we say OK. It's going to go look at Retail Pro, and it's going to bring over anything that it finds. We can see here we have the charge, we have a check, we have our cost of goods, we have our total sales for the day, we have our receipt fee for our POA, for our payment on account, and we have the amount of inventory that's going to be adjusted, which is the same as the cost of goods, and we have our sales tax for the day. You also note that the batch total is the same for both debit and credit. That's an important thing to check, because if they don't match, there is something wrong with your batch, and you would go up here and unmark it and reread it. But all that looks good. So I am going to post that batch. I'm posting it for the date I read, for 10/28. I want to post it by store. Do not post by transaction. If you post by transaction, you're going to make a real mess out of your accounting software. We say OK, and that batch has been posted. Once I've posted it, I need to go into my accounting software, and I need to open up the accounting software that I want to import this into. So I'm going to go up here to the top. I'm going to make sure I'm in the right company. and I want to choose the Big Hairy Dog Company. I'll open up that file, and you may or may not have more than one company in your QuickBooks accounting. So when that opens up, I'm all set, and I'm now ready to import that batch into my point of sale. Stop that, into my accounting software. I'm going to go up here to File. I'm going to go down here to Utilities. I'll go to Import. I want to import an Iif file. An Iif file is the type of file that AccountLink creates. It's an Intuit interchange file. We say OK. I always put my information that comes from my AccountLink into a folder called QB Data. So in QB Data, we can see here's the receipts marked 1028 that we just read. We can also see here's a previous batch that I've read of vouchers, but I've already read them and I've already imported it into my QuickBooks. So I want to put that away up here in imported batches. So I clear out my QB Data folder and don't clutter it up. I choose the file I just read and I open it. Because I have my credit limits set at 0, this tells me that I am going to have a balance in my customer's file. That's perfectly fine, especially since the customer's already left with the merchandise. And I say OK. And I say OK. And we just posted that information into our accounting. My next thing is I want to check and make sure that that came over cleanly. So I'm going to go to Chart of Accounts. I'm going to go to AR Clearing. And AR Clearing should always have a balance of 0. If it doesn't have a balance of 0, then something went wrong. Either a charge or a payment didn't come over correctly. In AR Clearing is what happens is we get the total of the batch. We get the invoice that we created. We also get the payment that we made, and that zeroes us back out. We always want to start with 0 and end with 0. If we end at 0, then everything came in just like it should. So now I can go to my customers. I can see here under David, we have some charges. Under John, we have a payment for an invoice that he owes. And under Sean, we can see there's that new charge that he just made. There's a couple of ways to handle syncing up the payments with the invoices. The one I prefer is going up to Reports, coming down to Customers and Receivables, going to Open Invoices, and looking at my Open Invoice report. In my Open Invoice report, I can see all of the charges and all the payments. We can see under John, we have an invoice and we have a payment. If I double click on the invoice, I can go up here to the top. I can apply credits. I can select the credits that I'm applying. I can say done. He's still past due because he still owes 44 cents. And I will save and close that. And we have our updated list. Down here under Sean, I can see Sean has a payment hanging out that we can apply to this invoice. So again, we double click on the invoice, go to apply credits, and we apply that open credit balance. And we save and close. And we can see everybody's current balances, any invoices they have, any payments that are pending. And that is basically using accounts receivable an account link to post that information into your QuickBooks accounting. Anybody have any questions? I don't hear any questions from anybody. Well, this webinar will be recorded, and you will be getting a notice of where you can see the webinar after the fact. You can also go to our webpage, and you can take a look at previously recorded webinars anytime you want, and they are there for you to review. And you can also sign up for new webinars that may be coming up. So, since nobody has any questions, I guess I'll let you go. If anything comes up, just give us a call, 916-368-1070, or drop us a note at tech, T-E-C-H, at bighairydog.com. Everybody have a great one, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.